Good morning, everybody. It is Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me is Jamie Ueyama. Today, we are going to preview Notre Dame's next game against number 16 ranked Syracuse. It is going to be a road game. This is Notre Dame finally gets away from Notre Dame Stadium, where they played their worst football in 2022. That is an indisputable fact. Jamie, how are we doing today? You are back in your bunker dungeon.
The dungeons of rap. I'm doing good. Poot, what's up, man?
Poot is here. He's here to troll me about Michael Mayer, and I really appreciate him doing that. Poot's a good guy. We have fun on Twitter. I wish he would block me though, so he wouldn't see any of my tweets and he wouldn't have to reply to them. So thank you, Poot, for joining the show. And as people are filing in here, thank you everyone for joining. If you're watching on replay, David Knight, good morning. If you're watching on replay, make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe button. And what we're doing now is we're doing the notification bell so that people know if the show comes on, if we do a surprise show for any reason, the show pops up, or you just kind of, forget when we're recording, the post-game show, the morning after show, hit the notification bell so you get an alert that says we're live and you can go. I guess Poot will start it off with his initial question: should Michael Mayer play quarterback? First of all, I already advocated for that. So I don't know. He should stop giving me a hard time, frankly, because I already advocated. I was the one. And you know what? Jamie? I don't think that I have been given my due credit.
I gave you a ton of credit.
No. I'm talking about like just from the masses. The tight end sneak, and I feel like it was not attributed. It should have been attributed during the broadcast, frankly. Irish Sports Daily video analyst Greg Flamong said 3 weeks ago that Notre Dame needed to use the tight end for a tight end sneak because Drew Pine is too small, and they did, and I wasn't attributed, Jamie, and that hurts my feelings.
I'll tell you what, go and watch some Michael Mayer senior year highlights, him running the ball. I'd hand it off to him. They're pretty good with the backfield, but I'm just saying, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Let's go. Baby Beast, hey, Greg and Jamie. Thank you for joining the show, Baby Beast. We really appreciate that. We have a super chat and a question from Patrick Quinlan. First of all, thank you very much, Patrick. College football question for you on this fine Thursday. Only 6 teams have won a college football playoff game. Who do you think will be the 7th?
Man, I got to be honest. I haven't even really been thinking about the CFP this year because obviously my focus is on Notre Dame, and I haven't even really been thinking about who's going to be in it or not. Like, I assume the SEC is going to get 2 teams.
Yeah.
That's just my thought in it, is that they will get 2 teams. And it's probably going to be, I guess, Georgia, and then, Bama, I guess. Or Tennessee, I guess, won the thing. But I think Georgia's going to beat Tennessee, end up going to the SEC championship game. So
where is that game?
It's always in Atlanta. So
no. The Georgia-Tennessee game.
Oh, I don't. You know what? I don't know this year. But I would be surprised. I'm surprised if they had they had Alabama and Georgia at home. Maybe, I don't know. But
Georgia is the home team for that.
Yeah. I guess it could be Tennessee be the next team.
Yeah.
To win a thing. I don't think. I don't think USC. I don't think anyone from the Pac-12 is going to get in from the CFP. I think Ohio State it's going to be maybe Ohio State and Michigan might actually have a chance at both getting in for the Big Ten. It's just a weird year.
How do you see that happening?
Well, I think both of them go undefeated up until that point. One of them wins that. Yeah. One of them wins that game. The loser still ends up getting in. I think that could happen, right? That might actually happen and bump out a thing, because the Big 12, I don't see anyone from the Big 12 making it. I don't see anyone from the Pac-12 making it. Clemson is probably going to make it, but I don't think they're going to be, you know, I don't think they're going to, I mean, they've already won a game, but I just don't see them, making much of an impact there. So, I think you got to kind of root for Tennessee to do it. Cause I mean, no one wants Michigan to win a college football playoff game.
No. Patrick Quinlan says, so the teams are Bama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and LSU. And it doesn't have to be this year. So I guess looking beyond, what is the type of program that, I guess Patrick, what he's asking is like, what's the type of program that can break into the hierarchy of college football? And I mean, I guess you would look at Tennessee, right? Like they're kind of out of nowhere, right? They haven't been, close to a playoff team, anytime recently. And now they beat Bama. They're playing a brand of football that is super repeatable. I mean, it's similar to LSU in 2019, frankly. They're running the terrific play actions all the time, which we love. Maybe even on third down, who knows? Yeah. So I think that's a good one. It's hard to envision USC a little bit just because,
I could see them in the next couple of years.
I could see it in a couple of years, but here's the problem: is Lincoln Riley going to be around in a couple of years? I don't know that he'll be around long enough.
I don't know. I mean, it depends if he goes to the NFL. That would be the only other spot he would go, right?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But we'll see about that. So yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's hard because I think a year ago we would have said Notre Dame, right? And now that feels so far away. It feels like a distant. I don't know if we would have said Notre Dame, but it would have certainly been a consideration. And I guess that's a bummer of this year. It feels a lot further than it had previously. And so I guess getting into this game, let's transition a bit to the Notre Dame Syracuse game, because this is it's a ranked opponent. And this is the second time Notre Dame has played a ranked opponent. I think was BYU 16 as well, if I remember correctly. So this is the second number 16 team they faced. BYU versus Syracuse, who wins?
I think Syracuse wins. I think they're a better team. They're a better team. But I mean, I will say, really they're 16th, but they're really probably somewhere between 25th and 35th of actually where they actually are as a program, I would say.
Okay. So I thought so I think BYU, we thought they were like in the 40s somewhere. Yeah. So I agree. Syracuse is better than them. Baby B says 27-21 Notre Dame. And so here's the thing about that, right? And we'll get into the nitty gritty of Syracuse as a team and all those things. But the thing that scares me about this game is not the type of team that I think Syracuse is on paper, right? They have the quarterback, who's obviously the focus of everything. Tucker, the running back, is a good player, although he's basically done a lot of his damage in the first 2 weeks and then against Wagner. And then beyond that, he hasn't had really impressive numbers, in my opinion.
Definitely not from last year. He rushed for 1,500 yards last year, right?
Yeah. So there's that piece, and then they have the wide receiver Rondé Gadsden, who's a good player, good threat. But those are basically the three, right? If any of those guys don't have a good game, we can. I feel like Notre Dame has a good chance, right? And their defense is good in the back, not so much up front. I think Notre Dame should be able to run the ball. And so I look at those things and I think this isn't a terrible matchup for Notre Dame. It's actually a pretty good matchup. The thing that scares me about this game is that at this point in the season, you have teams that have proven that they are something they're good at is winning games. I think Purdue's shown they're good at winning games. They should have lost to Purdue. They found a way to win. They kind of scrapped it out against
Purdue. Really blew that game. Yeah,
but Purdue blew it. But there's something to be said for finding a way, right? And Notre Dame has shown that they're willing to not find a way. They're willing to find a way to not win the game. And that is the thing. It's like, so Baby Beast has 27-21. That's kind of a close game. Like, I'm a little concerned that Notre Dame is going to get into a close game and Syracuse can be like, oh, we're ready to win. And Notre Dame's going to be like, we're ready to lose.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my main concern is. It has less to do with the two teams and more about just the trend of the season.
I think that's the wavelength that I've been on too, is if Notre Dame is in a position where, if Notre Dame is down and they need, like, it's 2-minute drill, Drew Pine has to make plays to win the game. I mean, I would just live bet Syracuse right there. Like, I couldn't be confident in that. I don't think anyone could, really, right? Based on what we've seen. Because basically, like, really, like, if you look at last year, the Virginia Tech and Toledo, those are games where Notre Dame came through, and Cone specifically came through in those situations when they needed him, right? And I mean, obviously Pine hasn't shown that he's Cone in those situations this year. And, like, I mean, he had a chance against Stanford, right? And then, you know, Buckner had a chance against Marshall and they didn't, right? So I think there's that, you know, aspect of it. But I think it depends, because if Notre Dame gets in a situation where it's close in the fourth quarter and maybe even they're losing in the fourth quarter, but they still have time to run the ball and do that, I think they can win the game there. And that's the way I would lean to it. So it's like, if they're down, say 2017 at, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, or like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I think they can still win the game because they can just run their offense, and, maybe go at a little bit quicker pace in terms of some of the stuff that they're doing with the run. They're not trying to run like a 4-minute offense, but I think if they can run it and grind it out and do some of these other things that still kind of keep within the offense and not have Drew Pine, oh, hey, you got to make this throw to do it. Like, then I think they can win it. But if not, I don't see it. But I do think it's going to be a very close game.
So but the thing is, like, that's what happened against Stanford. They had the ball with time to grind it out, and Estime fumbled. They found a way to not win, and to me, if there's like 8 minutes left in the fourth,
I mean, I don't think Estime is getting the ball in that situation. I don't think they'll put him in.
But that's what I'm saying. But it has less to do with Estime and more just like Notre Dame found a way to lose again.
Yeah.
You had a chance you had time against Toledo, or not Toledo, Marshall. You had time and you threw a pick six.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's what they found a way to not win. And so, like, I feel like if there's 8 minutes left in the game and Syracuse has the ball and it's 24-21 Notre Dame, right? Kind of feel like, okay, well, in this situation this year, Syracuse or the team has gone down and scored, and then Notre Dame has not. That's how they've lost the game twice.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's at. Like, and that's the thing that Marcus Freeman needs to. This is where his coaching needs to come in, and his getting the team ready is like, he needs to convince them that, like, no, we are going to succeed in this situation where we haven't in the past because of whatever reason, right? Like, this is where he needs to be the value add. He needs to be working their mental game, working them psychologically to where they feel like, okay, we are going to come up big in these moments. Even though we haven't, we're still going to be a good football team. We're still going to be a successful team in 2022. And that's what they have to believe. And that is an unknown, right? We don't know that they actually feel like, that they actually have that kind of that mindset. I'm going to get to a couple comments. Sejin Park, our Korean friend from Korea, thank you very much, as always, for tuning in. Notre Dame is likely to show up with a good effort since it's a good opponent. I agree with that. I think that's astute observation. I expect them to play well in the next 2 weeks and then look like ass against Navy. So that's funny, because then Poop comes in with, we're going to beat Syracuse and Clemson. Great. Lose to BC. Terrible. So it's like, that's where the mindset is for the fan base right now. It's like, we're going to do good and then we're going to lose terrible. We're going to look terrible against Navy and then lose to BC. I mean, it would be very 2022 to win the next 2 games and then lose to Navy and Boston College.
Very much beat Michigan State, lose to Pitt in 2013 vibes.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly the anti BK, right? Win the big games, lose all the easy games. Like that's the anti Brian Kelly formula. And unfortunately, there's usually more easy games than hard games on the schedule, so that leads to a bad overall record. I will throw up a real question from Poop. He prefaced it by saying "real question," so we have to take him seriously for this one. What do you think is driving the poor tackling? I'm going to say poor.
Well, I think part of it is they don't have enough speed. And it's weird to say, like, people think tackling, it's like, you don't need it. Like, no, when you're like running down a guy or pursuing a guy, speed is a difference maker, because when you get there, and if you're able to get there and break down and take the proper angle, where I think this is just my thought on it with JD Bertrand, but this is how I view a lot of stuff too. When a guy has to go at 100% top speed to try to catch somebody running on the perimeter, and then all it takes is one move, and then that guy's like dusted, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where they're at, I would say, overall with some of the tackling. I think like they don't have enough like team speed on defense. And perfect example, Drew Tranquill, when he was playing safety, slow for a safety, 230 pounds, it wasn't a good safety, and he wasn't a good tackler as a safety. Guy moves to linebacker, never had an issue with tackling. Never had an issue, right? It's different. It's a lot different playing there. He didn't have to do the same kind of things. He didn't have to come downhill and attack from different angles. So I think that has something to do with it. I don't think the tackling has been nearly as bad as it kind of seems like there's been situations that they've missed tackles and it's made it look like bad. They had like big spots, the BYU game, the third and whatever, right? 3rd and 18. That one drive, that Marshall drive, those were the things, and they stick out in your mind. And then obviously like DJ Brown missing the one tackle against UNLV, those stick out, but it's not like DJ Brown has tackled fine this year. Like that's the only really miss that I can ever even remember him making. I think he's tackled pretty well.
Yeah. A follow-up from Sajin Park. Are the linebackers having to process too much mentally, therefore leading to slow play, or are they just physically slow?
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I thought that's kind of like partially been my theory, that maybe like they're thinking too much to it, because I don't see those guys triggering enough when they see stuff like recognizing and going and triggering. But I have seen that actually more in the last couple of weeks. And so I think that's like part of it. But I also think like I don't think like Marist is slow at all. But I think if you put him in a race against Prince Colley, like Prince Colley's like a lot faster than him, right? So that's part of it, is that if they just played like the fastest guys, they'd look a lot faster. And because you can be like a tick slower doing it. So I think like one of those things was like Jaylen Smith used to be like, man, this guy's got great instincts. I mean, the guy runs a 4.4. Of course he was looked like his instincts were great, because he could be a half second late, because he could make it up. But other guys can't. And there's just some guys. So like Drew White was a perfect example of like, I mean, he wasn't slow. Like I think he ended, he ran like a 4.7 or something at the pro day or whatever. Like that's fine. Right. But there's plays that he could play faster, because he was a guy who processed. Tavon Coney, not fast at all, but he processed things super fast, and he was super instinctive. So I think it's like a little bit of a mix, right? A little bit of a mix, or sometimes maybe these guys aren't like the greatest athletes in terms of like, they're not the most athletic linebackers out there, but I think like so like Jack Kaiser, I think is like generally like a pretty fast kid. But as an inside linebacker, he doesn't process things as fast. So he probably plays a little bit slower than he actually is.
Yeah. Because like you look at JD Bertrand, right? Like on the long run, on the first long run, like he runs down the back. He runs him down. I mean, he gets there and he makes the tackle. So it's not the speed. Like I think part of it too is you got like Tavon Coney, perfect example, like football player, like when you say processes it, like football guy, he sees it and goes. You don't have to, like, that makes you faster, right? Alohi Gilman, same thing, football player. Julian Love, not a 4-4 guy, not a 4-3 guy, knows the game, feels the game, right? Has a sense for the game. And I think that's what's
Matthias Farley.
Like, I think that's what's kind of lacking on the defense most of all. Like, there's no one who's like just a baller gamer guy. Like Kyron on offense is a good example. Like Sean Crawford, physically limited, especially with all the injuries, but like he knew how to be around the ball. And I think Notre Dame just doesn't have that guy on defense, kind of like anywhere, where it's like just knows how to be around the ball all the time, knows how to slip through blocks, knows how to defeat blocks, knows how to, undercut a route, when to undercut a route, when to turn around, like that sort of thing. They're all just a bunch of good athletes, but no one has that like instinctual Shane Walton knows how to make plays all the time, and that's just kind of,
well, Kyle Hamilton.
Right.
Kyle Hamilton. Like, I mean, I don't think certainly Kyle Hamilton is probably faster than his 40 time would indicate, but he's the guy who played fast because he had those instincts, right?
Yeah.
And could process things and figure things out and was a smart football player. And, and then plus his length helped him catch up to certain things too. But that is like, and that's hard to quantify because, there might be someone that you see that and, you want to have like, so a guy like Osita Ekwonu, who was a highly rated recruit, and certainly like a very good athlete, right?
Yeah.
But and you saw him when he arrived on campus. He absolutely looked the part. You're like, oh, this looks like he's a dude who's been on the team for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And he just, that part of the game never fit with him, and that's also why he like ended up moving to Viper or whatever, right? And obviously he's been injured and stuff since then. But some guys got it and some guys don't, and it's just hard to quantify.
Yeah. This will be the last comment from Poot for the rest of the thing before he gets kicked out of the chat. That's why Kyle never should have played offense, in my opinion. So if you have any more questions, just throw your last questions in, and then you'll be kicked out of the chat, probably forever. That's probably what we'll do. All right, Keith Hearing. Most important question: when Notre Dame is up 28-0 late in the fourth, does Dino Babers kick a coward's field goal like he did in the 2018 game?
Oh yeah, that was great.
I think what should happen if they do line up for the coward's field goal,
he's going to do that.
I think what should happen is if they do line up for the coward's field goal, I think Notre Dame should take penalties until they have a first down, and then you try to score on us. Like, we're not going to let you kick the coward's field goal. Like, you need to try to score. That's what I would do. To take penalties. Like, I reject. Like how they decline. Like, we decline the fourth down. You need to try and score. That's what I would do in that situation. All right. Real question from Poot. Do you think there's any pressing from the defense given the less than stellar offense?
Yes, I do. Because, I mean, has Notre Dame had, outside of the North Carolina game, well, I guess by BYU too, those are the only times they've had like kind of like a double-digit lead, right?
Yeah.
And when you don't have, when everything is a 1-score game, like, yeah, there's a lot more pressure on you. And also too, like the offense is less predictable because they have everything on their menu, right? So, yeah, I think that is part of it, especially like when and when the offense isn't playing well, like we got to be perfect. Like it's like after the game, and I know Marcus Freeman is just saying stuff to protect the guys on offense and protect his coaches on offense. But when he's saying like, the defense, I mean, if they got to play perfect win, they got to play perfect, whatever. It's like, okay, you say that, but it's just like, how frustrating is that if it's like one guy makes one mistake and that could be the ball game because like you can't afford to take that mistake because that the other side of the ball doesn't got you, right? Which is, I think, also why it's really big that the special teams have stepped up and they've made impact in the special teams, because without that, like, I mean, you need that kind of thing to be like, okay, we got to stop. Oh, now it's punt block. We might get after this punt. Like that is big. Like that is big. And that I think can help a lot.
And okay, so let's think about the halftime score for the opponent in every single game, right? Ohio State was 7. Marshall was 9. North Carolina was 14, I believe. What was Cal? Were they 7?
7.
So Cal was 7. North Carolina was 14. That's the highest score an opponent has had at halftime is 14 points. BYU was 6. Stanford was 7. No, 10. Sorry, excuse me. They were 10. And they were 10 because Notre Dame fumbled at the 50-yard line with like 40 seconds left, So it's like really it was about to be 7. And then in the UNLV game, it was 7.
Well, how about that, they threw up the number at the beginning of the last game. Notre Dame had only scored 6 points in the first quarter before they played UNLV. Like,
right.
I mean, that's horrible. Like,
so the point that I was making is like Notre Dame is on defense stringing stops together in every single game. In the first half, you are just stringing together stops, right? No one is consistently moving the ball. It's not 17. It's not 21. It's not 24, right? You're just they give up a score, like a score, and then they start stringing together stops, and that's not being paid off. And that is the sort of thing that makes you tight. It's like, man, we don't have, like you said, we don't have margin for error here. Why aren't we up double digits when we've only given up 7 points in the half, 9 points in the half? Like that's where it gets kind of like, oh my gosh, and then you start to press a little bit. You start trying to force things, and it doesn't go very well. All right, so let's dive into Syracuse here, Jamie.
One thing the one guy asked, Coldsy is healthy. He's healthy.
He's healthy, but like is he healthy in the way that like Joe Wilkins is healthy?
No, I think he's healthy. I think he's just not playing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's all kind of unknowable because we haven't seen him. We didn't see him in practice.
I heard he is healthy. So
okay.
I think he's just not in the mix.
I just meant from like where he is, like how did that affect his development and that sort of thing, and like where he is on the depth chart and whatever. I guess he's second on the depth chart. Tobias still not on the depth chart, and that just goes to show that document is not worth much, not really worth anything. All right, so let's go into Syracuse. Jamie, you've done the research. Tell me about the Syracuse offense versus the Notre Dame defense.
Well, I mean, I think most people know Syracuse got a great running back. Sean Tucker is a great running back.
Tell me why he's a great running back, because the numbers, especially this year, don't really support.
Well, I mean, he is averaging like 99 yards per game rushing, so it's not.
Well, no, but to be fair though, right? Like he's averaging 99 yards rushing, and he's got, I think, 2. Let's just go over it. I'm going to go over it. And I'm not pushing back. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying people are going to look at his output, right? So he's got 100 yards, 21 for 100 against Louisville in the opener, 27 for 112 against Connecticut in the game after that. So 4.7 to carry, 4.1. And then Purdue, 18 carries, 42 yards. Virginia, 21 carries, 60 yards. Wagner, 23 for 232. So that's obviously a huge game against Wagner. NC State, 14 for 98, 7 to carry. That's pretty good. And then 5 for 54 against Clemson. So I guess tell me why you would say he's a great running back, despite the fact that, like, in a lot of those games, he's not really doing much. Like, what is the scheme? What does he show, like, physically?
Everybody just knows they play to stop him. That's how everybody plays it. Like, they know that he's the dude. So they play to stop him. One of the reasons he only had 5 carries against Clemson is because they're like, we can't let Tucker. They're going to play the read. Like, they can have Schrader, but we're not going to give them Tucker because they don't, we don't want to give them that option, right? We want to try to take away Tucker's most strong, because Tucker is the guy that he hasn't had as many like big time breakaway things, but the guy's got big time speed. He runs track at Syracuse. But he's also a guy who, yards after contact, he's very he's very slippery. He's like a complete back. And then the other thing is that they will give him the ball. They just get him touches, right? Like he has 29 catches on the year. They're going to give him the ball as much as possible. So he is kind of in the Kyron Williams mold of like, they're just going to give him the ball as much as possible, because they feel that even if he doesn't break one, he's going to maximize the yards in the play. It might be, he might catch a swing pass and it might should go for 2 yards, but he gets 7, He might have a run where it's actually only blocked up for 2, and then he gets 14, like he has that ability, right? Because if you give him enough touches, he's going to be able to do that. And that's what makes him dangerous, right? That makes him dangerous. And obviously you can bottle him up. You can do these certain things, but I think if you have, Notre Dame has had some lapses in run defense.
Fair to say.
Fair to say. And if he's the kind of guy that if you have those kind of lapses, he's the guy who could make, DJ Brown miss in space and then turn that into a big play. He has that kind of ability, right? So, and then really make you pay from there. So that's why, he's so dangerous. And I would say he's not having the same type of impact he has last year, but he's still a very, very good back.
I mean, look, Kalen LeBourne ripped Notre Dame apart, and I think he's been a lot better this year than Tucker has, just like in the other games. But I mean, we've seen where backs can. I mean, the BYU back had a big game against Notre Dame. North Carolina didn't, right? And there's something to be said for that. But I think, given the quarterback as well and the way they want to run, I think if Notre Dame is kind of dual on these zone read plays, if they are dual worried about the quarterback running plus the running back, it makes me a little bit nervous with the linebackers and what we've been talking about with the ability to process. And if you're in a chase situation against Tucker, it's not like he'll rip them apart, but it's enough to where it's like they're playing from in front of the chains all the time.
Yeah.
And that is a genuine concern.
Yeah.
Because that's how they want to win. That's how they want to grind you.
They're 12th in opportunity rate, which means they get 4 yards when there is 4 yards to get. So you take off 3rd and goal or whatever from the 3 or whatever, right? That gets off the table. But when there is 4 yards to get and they get it, they have the 12th highest rate of that. And Notre Dame gives up they're 105th in opportunity rate on defense. So there's someone, if they kind of stay patient with the thing is with Notre Dame is what they've done enough of is they've had enough, especially in the last 4 weeks, they have enough stuffs where they, put teams might get 8 here, 6 here, whatever, but then they get a stuff and then they put them behind the chains, right? And then that's where what Notre Dame has kind of done. And if they're able to kind of do that, and then if they make Garrett Schrader be a guy who has to pass, because if they're doing stuff on first down and he's got all these, they have all these matchups, they get Gadsden is obviously their big guy there too. If they get into those situations, then that's going to be, difficult to stop. But if they're in 3rd and 8, that's a situation where Notre Dame, I think, is going to win a lot, because I don't think Schrader is a guy. That's when you can do things to kind of bracket Gadsden. They'll maybe try to throw something to Tucker and hope he breaks some tackles or whatever. But Schrader isn't a guy who is going to pick you apart from the pocket that much.
Yeah. Baby Beast brings up a good point about penalties. Syracuse is a high penalty team, 10 penalties a game. I think he's saying Notre Dame only has 10 for 267. I don't know how that's possible. They could average 26.7 yards a penalty when there are no penalties beyond 15. So maybe Notre Dame's is wrong, but I just checked Syracuse. They do have 67 penalties on the year. So, 10 penalties a game is a lot, and that's a little bit sloppy. They've turned the ball over 7 times, 3 lost
fumbles. They're 119th in penalty yards per game, Syracuse. 72.9 yards per game. Notre Dame is 11th, 38.1 yards per game.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. It's a pretty good difference there. So that could be a factor. Although, to be honest, I don't
it's a big factor in that Clemson game.
It was a big factor in the Clemson game for sure. But I also don't count on Notre Dame getting the breaks penalty wise.
Not in
on the
Syracuse,
road, especially.
Yeah. At ACC officials.
ACC, I would not, yeah. I don't count on that. But the turnovers, I think, is a factor. Because the Schrader will throw you the ball if you let him, right? He tried to throw. I think he tried to throw. It would have been a pick 6 against Clemson. The guy dropped it. And then there were a couple other situations in that game as well. So, I'd like playing a team that is not super dynamic. But at the same time, you just look at that. The linebackers have to have a good game. It's just not. It's unfortunately that they're going to be put to the test, and I guess it's a good primer for Clemson next week as well, because they're going to be put to the test in that one. They got to be able to tackle the quarterback. They got to be able to rein in the running back and that sort of thing. It's going to be a big game for the defensive line as well. I think if Notre Dame was to win that matchup up front, I'd feel really good about Notre Dame's chances in the game. All right, let's switch over to Notre Dame's offense versus the Clemson defense.
Syracuse defense, yeah.
Yes, Syracuse defense. Sorry about that. It's hard because they played each other, and I was watching a lot of that game. So
it's all orange.
It's all orange. Yeah, all orange all the time. So the Notre Dame offense against the Syracuse defense. They create a lot of turnovers, right? They have 13 on the year. They're no. Is it 13? Let me check. I think I just had that right. Turnover margin, they have created 13, right? 7 interceptions, 6 fumbles. Obviously, Notre Dame's been a maybe one of their worst stats of the year is their turnover margin. They're minus 6 or 7 at this point. So they're good in the back. I think they're kind of soft up front, and I think they have good linebackers. So tell me about their defense.
Yeah, they're not great. They don't have any game records up front. Everybody's just kind of a guy. They have a really undersized nose guard, but he plays hard and he's quick. He could give him some problems, but they are more of a team that, they're 3-3-5, but they mix up fronts and mix up looks and stuff. What they do in terms of attacking with defensive backs, linebackers, and what they're doing in pressure situations, trying to create negative plays. That's what they do. And it's that Rocky Long, that's the 3-3-5 that they, that's from that tree of coaching, right? Where that's the scheme. And it's worked really well, right? They play good defense, I think. And they do a lot to kind of confuse quarterbacks and confuse protections and stuff. The linebackers are really good blitzers, very good, and they do a lot of things to kind of mess. That's certainly. I think that Jade Mickey one is a big one. That's important. I think in terms of like the run game, because they're small. It's a small, fast defense. You can run on them. They've been bad against the run this year, right? Like Clemson took over the game. They ran on the the last 28 plays for 6.4 yards per carry and like basically controlled the game because of that. And they're 110th in EPA per rush, 116th in opportunity rate, 119th in stuff rate, right? And I think if you look at where Notre Dame has done in the offensive line, what they've done in the offensive line and what they've kind of done with the backs, I think that's like, a really good matchup for Notre Dame and what they should do. If they have to pass and they have to get into a situation where it's, even just too many 3rd and, 6+, then Syracuse can do all different kinds of things with their pressure stuff. And Pine is going to have to be really good. And I think you don't want to get into that situation. If you get into 3rd and short, then, you're going to be in a good spot.
All right. So Marcus Freeman's doing his little press conference now. So he's talking about Jaylen Sneed getting practice reps with scout team and varsity. So with it, basically varsity means he's getting the game plan ready to be inserted. Right. I don't know. I mean, obviously we're very interested to see what that could lead to, Jamie, in terms of, getting an athlete on the field, right? Getting someone with speed, like you talked about. Find it hard to believe that he would make his debut in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I don't think he'll. I think he would be a guy in the last month. Maybe you'll see. And obviously, depending on injuries and stuff too, I think that's what you're probably looking at. Or he might be a guy who goes from not playing to like all of a sudden he plays in the bowl game kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more likely with him. And I mentioned that in kind of 6 thoughts it's probably more of that situation. Yeah, they're not going to throw him in these next 2 games unless look, they were banged up in this game and he didn't get the call. So I don't think people are asking because they're excited about him, but they're also asking because the linebackers were, underwhelmed.
How is Syracuse from a pressure standpoint? Are they getting pressure with blitz, or are they like a 4-down team? I guess they're 3-3-5, but so how are they? Just like, do they need to blitz to get pressure? I guess is the question.
Well, they will blitz, but they're not a super heavy 5-man pressures. It's just that you don't know the 4 that are going to come, right? So they do a lot of stuff. They'll drop D linemen quite a bit. So they do a lot of like zone pressure stuff with their, they'll bring guys from all angles. They'll overload, protection stuff too. And that I think is going to be key, because there's going to be situations where it's like, say 3rd and 6, and really the best call might be check to this run to the left. And then that'll be your best chance of getting a first down. So that's kind of what you worry, because they show stuff. And I don't think they're going to do a lot of things where, I haven't seen them like check in and out of like different things. They're pretty much, they're going to show and go a lot of times. And certainly like, they'll simulate pressures, but so you don't know who for sure is going to come that side, but they're not all of a sudden, I don't see a lot of doing too much in terms of checks and all that kind of thing. So, they're pretty good in sack rate. Like they're a team that they don't have a great individual pass rusher. But as a unit, they get after the passer because they do a good job of attacking protections.
Kind of getting off this. I think I think this leads to a good discussion. That's why I'm putting it up from Baby Beast. Is this Freeman's rebuild year, or is he just a bad coach? I don't know about the bad coach piece, but he did kind of talk about, like, he did make some comments about rebuilding and that sort of thing. And at the end of the show on Tuesday, I when we were done, I said to you, if Notre Dame doesn't win this game, I'm going to be pretty upset. And the reason for that, it kind of gets to this question a little bit, is that I don't want to say he's a bad coach, because that will be borne out in the next couple of years, right? And I don't think there's any way that he's like not Notre Dame's coach next year. So we're not going there. So that'll be borne out. But I do think that if Notre Dame doesn't play well in this game, like if they don't win this game, then I've obviously been pretty, I guess, easy on Freeman, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. I think I'm a little bit more understanding of what's happened up to this point. And I think that going into the 8th game of the year, it's time that the team starts to show, like, okay, we're what we were before, like the new quarterback, unpredictable play from him, and all those other things. It's kind of, when you don't know what to predict from your quarterback, it makes it difficult, right? So I'll I don't want to say give a pass. I'm understanding of it. Like I said, I think if Notre Dame doesn't play well in this game, it's okay. You're doing a bad job. You've had plenty of time, in my opinion, to kind of shape the way the culture is, the mindset you want your team to have, how to prepare them, and that sort of thing. How to push their buttons to get them playing well. And if that doesn't happen in this game, you're doing a bad job, and you did a bad job. And I'm going to start like saying that a little bit more forcefully, because that's what I think is true. So I guess what do you think about that?
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I think anyone who thinks that Brian Kelly left this, like, man, they won, 5 straight years, 10-win seasons. One, look at that team last year and tell me they didn't win with smoke and mirrors. That schedule was like a garbage bin on fire inside of another garbage bin on fire.
He got very fortunate with the USC situation, and then
USC Wisconsin was bad.
Brandon Armstrong getting hurt.
Even like Georgia Tech, they played another backup quarterback. They had a lot of breaks. Like Stanford was trash again. Like, and I'm not saying like, Stanford's trash this year. They lose that game. But this when you consider like what Notre Dame was for, from 2018 to 2020, and that they relied heavily on, third, fourth, and fifth year guys, right? That's for the most part. And they relied heavily on like their elite guys being elite. So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Kyle Hamilton, Kyron Williams, Michael Mayer, and then before that, Julian Love, Julian Aquara, like Khalid Kareem, all of these guys who were their top guys, right? And they played like top guys. And now I want you to think about the fifth year guys in this team.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably going to be, from the 2018 class, they signed 27 guys. They might have 4 get drafted. One guy's already in the league in Tremble.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Admiral, I like Jason Admiral as a player, but I think he is borderline maybe going to get drafted because he's small. He is small. He's tiny. And I don't think like he might be a guy who ends up sticking in the league. But if he's someone who ends up, being on an undrafted free agent, I wouldn't be shocked, because they don't, how many times have small guys get drafted that are like him, like Grady Jarrett, and Grady Jarrett was a much better player than Jason Admiral was, right? Like there's just not a lot of Grady Jarretts out there. So, and Tariq Bracy, right? Tariq Bracy, and who I think is going to get drafted this year, and Jared Patterson. So Kevin Austin was in that class, essentially a 1-year.
Patterson was 19.
Was he not 2018? I believe he was 2018. He was 2018.
Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Yes. Justin Admiral, Bo Bauer, DJ Brown are like the next guys from that class. That's not a lot of like great players, really. Mm-hmm. And then you look at 2019. Foskey, Hamilton, Kyron. home runs, right? Those are home runs, really, right? Well, Hamilton, Kyron are 3-and-out guys, so they're not here anymore. So then it's Howard Cross, Kaiser, Bertrand, Leofau, Hart, Carell, Nana, and Lacey. Those are the only guys who played from that class. I mean, Howard Cross is the next best guy from that group in terms of like what he's done. And he's right now a 1-year starter, right? Like, so that's not great. 2020, Mayer, Mills, and Tyree as top guys. Then Henderson, Pine, Lewis, Watts, and Bauman. Those are the top guys. Where are the third, fourth, and fifth year guys? Where are these guys there? And look at the 2021 class. They've had I think they got a lot of good players in that class, right? Like, but are Styles and Thomas ready to be great players right now? Haven't shown it yet, right? Fisher and all, 2 really, really good players. But the fact that those are your best offensive linemen and they're guys who are just kind of getting into their peak right now, that's not great, right? Like Diggs and Esteme, both good players, but like you would hope that these guys wouldn't be your leading rushers heading into into their second year, right? So the fact that they have, and then even on that class, Culley and Rubio are the only guys there. So it's not like they have all this big bump from these other younger guys really kind of pushing ahead there. The roster is just not that good, right? Like they had too many misses. And there's a lot of like Jordan Johnsons in those groups of guys who were like highly touted that didn't pan out, or like, just different like guys that maybe like didn't really become the guys who they were supposed to be. But out of those 2018 and 2019, 2020, like the only receiver is Kevin Austin, and he's gone. So like Lindsey is, I guess, on there too. I should have mentioned him as a contributor, but like he's obviously underachieved, for his career. And I'm not getting, some of it is not his fault, but you know what I mean? But I'm just saying that where are the top guys? Because they don't have those guys now. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be 5-1 or they shouldn't beat Syracuse, but let's not act like he walked into a situation that was ready-made for them to win double digits and be like a CFP contender. Because just the reality is a lot of the guys that, that I thought, or you thought, or we all, that they haven't taken that step to be that. So it's like, Maris Leofau hasn't become this like star linebacker. Cam Hart hasn't become this star corner, right? Ramon Henderson hasn't become this guy who emerged as safety. And then even if you adding Brandon Joseph, who's supposed to be this guy, and then he wasn't, right? Like, where are the great players, right? It's like if Foskey doesn't have a monster game, who is going to have a monster game on defense? Really? Like, we haven't seen it from anyone. Maybe, right? Like maybe Riley Mills, maybe, right? Like, and then on offense too, like, I think they have a bunch of good players, but they don't have a guy who you would consider like a top level quarterback who can help like elevate some guys. And then when you don't have that, you need other top skill guys to really step up. And other than Michael Mayer, they don't have an elite guy, right? So that's kind of the status. And I think whatever, and it's something that I know that, you and me and Matt have talked about like off air, like they don't have a roster right now that's built for them to win 10, 11 games. And a lot of it was based on, and I thought they did maybe before, but a lot of that was based on the assumption. But I mean, they didn't give us access. Maybe that's why they didn't give us access, because they were like, I don't know about this team, whatever. Like, so I think that's like, I think I'm not saying you give Freeman a total mulligan if they lose this game, or if they have like, they go 6-6 this year, whatever, because obviously you got to be held accountable. Should be doing better. They should be like 8-4 or 9-3, whatever. Right. But I do think that, this isn't a team. People think that this team was like, oh, we're really close to like closing that gap. And the reality is they need the 2022 class, the 2023 class, and forward for them to really close that gap, because they don't have guys on the roster right now who are guys who are doing that.
Right. So I hear all that. I hear all that. Okay, I do, and I agree. We've talked about it before in terms of the roster, right? I agree with that part of it. You're picking Notre Dame to win this game, right?
Yes, I am. But
yeah.
I mean,
no. But wait,
I actually changed my pick because I had originally picked Syracuse.
Okay, and you didn't pick them against Ohio State, right?
I didn't know.
You picked Ohio State to win.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah, right. No,
yeah.
I'm just saying. Like I picked Notre Dame in that game. Don't call me idiot. No, but so the point I'm making is that we know all that stuff about the roster and all those things. We already know that. Yet we keep picking them to win these games. Why? Because we feel like Notre Dame's better. So if that's being said, and we keep picking them to win these games, and they keep losing these games where we think Notre Dame's better, that's not a good job. It isn't. Even with all the deficiencies, okay, it's not a good job. If you keep losing games, you should win. I think that's fair. Like I don't think that's I don't think that's out of line to think, And so I feel like at some point I understand the Marshall thing to an extent. A little bit, kind of not really. I mean, the line wasn't playing well, and I don't want to get into it. The Stanford thing, Pine really did not play well, and that's kind of out of Marcus Freeman control a little bit. But I think now that he knows what could happen with Pine, I think for Notre Dame to lose this game, and obviously if the game happens a certain kind of way, I'll evaluate it then, right? And so I do need to see how the game goes. But I just think if for Notre Dame to lose this game, they would have to come out and not play well. And if they're not playing well in game 8, when there should be urgency within the program at this point. It shouldn't be, because here's the thing. Cam Hart, we thought take a leap, right? Isaiah Foskey, leap, Marist, all the guys you named. It's his job to get those guys to take a leap. That's what coaching is at the bare minimum. We've talked about it before with the defense. Who's playing up? They're not really playing up. And that's the coach's job. And not just that, that's his side of the ball. So that's where it's look, at some point I'm going to have to say you're not doing great. Okay. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I'm watching this Searcher Green situation in the chat. Yeah. And so I'm going to put up a couple comments. So Kelly didn't take over a 10-win team, but what he did take over with a team with a ton of dudes on it. Okay. And that was mismanaged by Charlie Weiss, right? He had Manti Te'o on that team. He had Zach Martin on that team. He had Tyler Eifert on that team. He had Sierra Wood on that team. He had Theo Riddick. He had Jonas Gray. He had Harrison Smith on that team.
Robert Blanton. They had a ton of blue chip
Darren Walls was in the NFL. That team had that team had more talent than probably this team does, frankly. So
yes,
that's part of it. And this comment is Notre Dame. This Notre Dame team didn't need rebuilt. Do we know that's true? I mean, Kelly showed up with a 5-star quarterback on the roster. I don't think that's what the BK didn't or Freeman didn't have that.
We're not making excuses that he shouldn't have beat Marshall, but you're just saying Georgia had to rebuild. Look at Georgia. They got 15 5-stars on their team.
Right.
They literally have 80% of their roster is we're top level guys. They've recruited at a different level and developed at a different level. And Kirby Smart has been there. That's the thing. And I'm not saying that Freeman, whatever, he doesn't get a pass for the losses, whatever. It's not like he doesn't get a pass, but to act like this is a team that they should, whatever. It's what do people want? Because this is how I know too, because I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. I'm from Vancouver. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. That's my team. They have all I want, all anyone who's a longtime Vancouver Canucks fan is them to win a Stanley Cup, right? They've come close a couple times, haven't got it, and they've been trash for the last 7 years, basically.
Yeah.
And the most frustrating thing is that they've always been hey, we can fill in these gaps here and there and try to kind of patch things together. and get it right. So, and so what do you want from Notre Dame? Do you want them to be a 10-win team every year, or do you want them to win a national championship? Because Notre Dame could have won 10 games here again this year. Yeah, they could have, and maybe they should have. Maybe if Brian Kelly was there, I mean, no, I don't think they would have. Not this year, but they would have won probably more games. They would have won that Marshall game. Probably would have won. They probably be, what I guess 6-1 right now, right, or whatever. But they wouldn't be any closer to winning a natty or anything like that. And I guarantee you they wouldn't have the class that they have, the 2023 class that they have. They wouldn't have the 2024 kids that they have either. And he's also the guy that brought in and you can say like, it is the job of these guys to develop them and make them take the next step too. But it's like, well, a lot of these guys are fourth, fifth year guys. None of those guys took steps under Kelly's thing either. Right. So I mean, I think you have to evaluate. I mean, you have to evaluate every game, you evaluate the year, and you evaluate the whole team as whatever. And I don't think this isn't a total rebuilding situation. I don't think that at all. Right. They have pieces in place. They have that. But if you thought that this was like this elite program that's going to keep winning and over time, it's like, easily last year they could have been, they went 11-2. That could have been like an 8-5 team.
Well, very easy. So Searcher Green, and I'm not picking on you. You're in the chat, and so we're having a conversation. So that's what it is, right? And you're saying things that I have points to, right? So Freeman didn't get enough dudes to beat Marshall, right? Okay, fair. Kelly tried to lose to Toledo. If the quarterback takes a knee at the 1 and they run out the clock and kick a field goal with no time on the clock, they lose to Toledo with Kyron Williams, with Kyle Hamilton, with Kevin Austin. Like all the guys they have this year, they had last year with those three. Like put Kevin Austin, Kyron Williams, and Kyle Hamilton on this team. You think they beat Marshall? Do you think they beat Stanford with those three guys? Just those three guys. They could all be on the team, right? So that's the thing. Brian Kelly didn't maximize, like you said. They were very close to 8-5. Your overtime against Florida State. You're a minute away from losing to Toledo at home. You're down 8 with 3 minutes left at Virginia Tech. They're on the way to losing all those games. So that's where it is a bit smoke and mirrors, where we said, the cupboard wasn't bare when Kelly left. He left Marcus Freeman in a great situation. And what we're saying is, was it really as great as we think? Is it really as great as we think? Like, should it have been? And I said, and I didn't say it on this pod. I think I said it on another pod, and I said it privately to a couple of people who can vouch for this. We were talking about the floor on this team, and I said the floor is like 6-6. In the preseason, I said this, like in May or June or whatever. The floor is 6-6 because there's a lot that we don't know, and it could just go a wrong way, and it has, right? So it's not like it wasn't in there. That's all I'll say about that. Is like I kind of had a feeling it was in there. I didn't think it would happen, and I don't know that it will happen, right? I still think, I mean, fine. If you think that, then no problem. I don't. Your opinion is your opinion.
I don't think I don't think this is rebuilding. I'm just being honest about the roster. It's just like the roster this year and last year. It's, it could be, like you said, the ceiling is this, but like what Greg said, the floor is 6-6. So like, obviously if they go 6-6 this year, that does mean Marcus Freeman did a bad job, because that's the floor. Right. And if they like go further, then they go deeper than that, and they don't make a bowl game, like then he did a really bad job. I think that's fair.
So here's the final thing, Searcher, is I'm not a Kelly fan in any way. I'm just tired of all the excuses for Freeman underachieving. The main difference between this team and last year's team is instead of getting the final drive against Toledo that they got from Cone, they got a pick six from Buckner. That is the main difference. The main difference between Notre Dame losing this year to Stanford and losing last year to Virginia Tech is Cone with the 3-minute drive to win the game, and Pine failed in the 2-minute. That is the main difference. That is the difference between 6-1 and 4-3 right there. So you could say underachieving, but then you would have to go back and say that Kelly was underachieving with these same guys, plus Kyle Hamilton, plus Kyron Williams, and plus Kevin Austin in that season as well. That's what we're saying. Plus Avery Davis. And the other part too is we wouldn't be thinking about, oh no, I don't know about this, if there was a team like if last year's Notre Dame team has this version of Clemson on the schedule and this version of USC at USC, like that's different. Notre Dame ended the season at Stanford and Georgia Tech and Navy and it was completely different, right? Injured Virginia, right? It all just kind of fell to them. So that's why it's like you have to look at it a little bit different. It's not that he hasn't underachieved. We have, and I just said if they lose this game, I'm going to be hard. I'm going to go in hard on Freeman, but it's not like we don't understand why like this team hasn't been as yes, Toledo was actually as bad as
they're like
Toledo
Marshall. They're like a
team.
five. They're
Toledo
like a 500.
Toledo was not a good.
They're
team.
a 500 group of 5 team. That's
right
there. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's at. I mean, I appreciate the discussion. I really do.
I do actually. I really.
It makes for a good show. Yeah. So I don't begrudge your opinion on that at all. Toledo was 7-6 last year, just to be clear on that. Toledo was 7-6. So that's where it is. All right. What do you say, Jamie? Wait, let's give me the prediction. What's it going to be?
I'm predicting Notre Dame 24, Syracuse 20. And I think Notre Dame will be down in the fourth quarter. And I think they will drive it down their throats to get the touchdown and go up by 4. And Syracuse will have to score a touchdown at the end of the game to go back up. They won't be able to kick a field goal, and Notre Dame's defense will get a stop. That's my prediction.
So you're saying it just it flips. The turning of the page. Turning of the page for the 2022 Notre Dame football team. All right. I'm going to say Notre Dame 31, Syracuse 21. I think Notre Dame's always good to give up 21 points. That's just been their kind of thing. So, you say 20, I say 21.
Yeah.
Real difference. So they're always good for that. And I think we're going to see, I do think there is a real thing between not the road, not so much the road home, but the fact that all the better teams are on the road. And I think there's a different mindset within Pine, especially in the team as a whole. It's like, it doesn't matter if we're blowing them out. I don't think it doesn't matter to them how it goes. It's just that you need to win. And I think they're in a better mental place there. Like, I do think there's something to the fact that this team, it cannot be a double-digit like favorite. I don't think they know how to handle that. The expectation of being a great team versus let's just win somehow. Let's just win. And that'll be good enough for everyone. They understand that if any sort of win will be fine for the fan base. And that is not true against Stanford, and that's not true against Marshall, and it wasn't true against UNLV either. It has to look a certain kind of way, right? We're thinking about backups getting in the game, and I don't think they can do that. So that's kind of how I feel about it. So I think it's going to be a good Notre Dame performance. I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but
I will say that Syracuse hasn't given up 30 this year. So if Indy gets over 30, it's a pretty good accomplishment for the offense, considering how the offense has played this year. Yeah,
right. I mean, that's five scoring drives. It's there. It's in there. Yeah. And look, maybe
they get a defensive score,
block another punt. Right, things are happening there, Jamie. So that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you're watching on replay and if you're watching now, hit subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live. We're going to do the post game recap, the instant reaction pod. That's going to be doing that, and then I always have my morning after show on Sunday morning, so you're going to want to tune in for that as well. So one more time, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Go Irish, beat Syracuse, and we will talk to you guys on Saturday afternoon.